live, I think so. Okay, hold on. Testing, testing. Okay. On Redemption by PKAnon. Chapter 1. Conundrum. In front of her sat two explosive, their fuses ignited long before the precarious point in time. Twilight's eyes flickered between the two of them as she cautiously measured their field. Lips curved awkwardly in words concentration. The multi-roomed tent around her nose, her rose is fair, viewed degrees. In temperature, her body is uncomfortably beacon of heat. She inwardly wondered which to diffuse first. Logically, she knew that the one on the right would be nothing short of catastrophic, as if we were to detonate, but something about the sheer possibilities to the leftmost bomb going off made her skin crawl. She shifted in her seat uncomfortably as she considered their inner working. Her eyes danced between them. Hold on, let me position this thing some more. Hold on, gotta move it. Shit. Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay, it seems like there's something wrong with it. And now, fuck me. Hold on. Oh, it's low battery. Oh, that's great. My phone just low battery just yeet itself. I guess no V tubing today. I guess no model. And gonna have to deal with the audio, I guess. Only. Okay, let's continue the reading. Her eyes danced between them. Both of their wings, both of their wiring and circuitry akin to a alien language to the interface of her Equestrian autism. How do I how do I do this? She wondered, beads of turmoil hold on, pulled on her raised brow. How do I get out of this without any collateral damage? The steady, the steady unyielding ticking of the clock on the wall proved an an ill backdrop of her frenetic thoughts, but she knew she would have made a decision eventually. A deep breath had unknowingly exited her lungs. It tainted the open air with her unease as she stood defiant of any outcome but the most ideal of her hooves almost imperceptibly took underneath her, as if they would no longer support a such a feared idle body, in even as in as even a tone as she could muster. She willed herself to speak. She's going to get help. She's going to get. She's going to help to run the tent. She's going to run. Oh, she's going to help run the tent. In the blink of an eye, each bomb fuse shortened considerably. Twilight wins as a rightmost explosive nose to her hoof, her eyes wide with displeasure. I beg your pardon? Chrysalis asks, distraught. Not only I do, not only do I have to be some lonely merchant in this miserable tradition of pointless festival, I have to do it with him. She pointed, huh? She pointed aghast at the bomb towards Twilight's left, whose frown deformed in his entire face. With crossed arm, he leaned forward, his elbow prompt against his knees. No, no, Anon said plainly. Not a chance, Twilight. Ouch. He never knew he called her that. Not since she first met him. She started to wince, to shrink back into herself, but something newly within her rose up into her chest, a princess conviction. It had always been there, but after a acquisition of her wings, it had grown exponentially. Ugh. I'm sorry, but this is how it's gonna work. Gonna happen. I'm sorry, but that's how has to happen. This is a perfect opportunity for the both of you to work past your differences and for Chrysalis to take a important step up towards her reformation. Indignation warped their faces. Uh, their fuses whip about, bracing on their Terminus. Twilight, she evaporated a third of my home during her last attempt at a invasion. Anon explained, a bulging vein in his forehead. She knew that, of course, she was the one at being fired at. After all, she apologized to Anon a million times over and over that day, but thankfully he had never blamed her for anything of it. You're lucky that's all I had time to do, Chrysalis growled. Chrysalis, credit to her, had made a uh, gargantuan stride in her journey toward reformation since her capture. In the beginning, she refused to speak at all, would lash out at any pony that dared to come close to her cell. The reminiscence of her progress is what kept Twilight confident in her focus, stared traded blow with Anon's scowl. Mm. That's why you're going to be a candidate. That's why you're going to be the perfect candidate for this. She explained. She explained. Making amends is one of the most important things a pony can learn to do, and it's essentially to making sure friendship stayed afloat in tough times. I mean, yeah, that's fine and dandy, but you're missing a pretty important part of the equation. We aren't. I will never be friends with unruly ape. I will never be friends with this unruly ape. I wish I have a Chrysalis shouted as the magic suppression ring on her horn glowed under a strain. After his abhorrent action towards the hive, Anon picked his head up slowly in the vein of his head was far more pronounced. His cold, almost frightening gaze scanned her for a few moments before turning to Twilight, settling an honest attempt at neutrality. Yeah, that. Mm. And the memory of the incident flashed in Twilight's mind, contorted her face into a grimace as she cast her eyes elsewhere. Because Annon's house was recent addition to the outer edge of Ponyville. Chrysalis drone missed it during their intentional swoop and had to double back after most of the opponents had been captured. He didn't exactly appreciate being woken up in the middle of his midday nap, halfway restrained with changeling goop. She wasn't there for it at that time. At that point, since she hadn't broken out of captivity, she didn't read. She did read a report of what happened afterwards. Gardening tools, scrap metals, shaving, a wielding masks, hairspray, a lighter, whatever must have been in reach for him. Every unorthodox implement that somehow found its way towards Anon's hand culminated in just over 2 dozen injured changelings, four of which ended up in hospital in the end. It took 8 of them to finally restrain him enough so he could be drained. Twilight had asked him about it once during lunch, to which he dryly replied that his uncle taught him some some things he never forget. She would always be close with friends with Anon, but after that day, the light in which she viewed the mostly gentle giant, would never be quite the same again. Now, though, that would work at her advantage. I understand you two. I understand that you two have less than favorable history, she said. But think of what you have may stand to gain. Sometimes a rocky start may lead to a wonderful friendship. Look at Discord and Fluttershy. I hate doing the voice. Chrysalis scowled. Chrysalis scoffed, silking back down into her wooden chair. I don't intend on becoming anything like that lapdog, Sparkle. Twilight couldn't help but glower at her hard-headed insult. Discord was like that, too, at first, but she kept that to herself for the time being. The fact that you think he's a lapdog? Oh, the fact that you think he's a lapdog says more about you than he does him. It does him. Anon retorts, cross arms as he leans back. Chrysalis glared was a enchantment away from shooting daggers towards his head, through his head. I'm sorry. At least I can say something about of him. She said slowly. She said lowly, words dripping with venom. I can't think of a single noble notable thing about you. 26 of your drones would hold on. 26 of your drone would disagree. Before another hustily concocted provocation would pass between them, Twilight forced their chairs apart with magic, holding them tight in their seats as they sealed in opposite position across the tent. Enough! Declared her wings flared in authority. Trading insult back and forth isn't productive for any pony here. Double crossed her mind but briefly. Anon needed all Hoof's hand on deck to make sure out of the he wasn't able to put out plates of the food at a decent pace. Chrysalis had to play along, eventually walk free. Both hesitant to accept each other, yet both with unlimited ultimate goal that required their cooperation. But the possibility of their interaction being not more than transactionary lied at the forefront of her mind. Had she made an oversight? Well, even if she did, the situation didn't leave any room for for correction. Hold on, let me make sure. Hey, how long? How much longer? Uh, I need to know how long I've been fucking screaming and shit. Okay, I will hate this. Okay. The situation didn't leave any room for correction. For better or for worse, the two were stuck together. Twilight just hoped that initial, her initial initiation would pay off. Chrysalis sent a few senior members of the royal guard to make sure things would go smoothly, Twilight explained, giving neither of them the time for a smart reply. They are waiting outside right now. I have to help Mayor organize the main event, but I'll swing by to try a veggie burger whenever we take a break for lunch. You better, Anon replied, the ghost of smile on his lips. You've been talking about trying them for weeks. Sides, you owe me now. Guilt began to gnaw away from her. In the end, she did spring this on him. I know, she replied, a smile beset against her fear of failure. She glanced up at the clock. It was almost time to begin preparation. Swiftly she made her way over to Anon, who sat up, a bit straightener as she approached. If you ever need, okay, hold on, okay. If you ever need anything, this place is, this place is in the center of your palm and squeeze it. Oh, wait, this is Twilight. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you ever need anything, just place this in the center of your palm and squeeze it. A flores of her pinkish aura lit the room as she manifested a small coin in front of her. Okay. Anon tentatively plucked out of it its uncanny stillness in the air and passed his fingers over this raised metal imprint of Twilight's trio of stars. Well, wait. Well, is this new? He said. What is it? It doesn't have a name yet, Twilight explained, but it's something I've been working on for the past few weeks. If something happened we're separated, you can envelop the coin to your neutral magic signature, and it'll resonate with my cutie mark. It's a bit similar to how the map works, but distant enough to where I can tell the difference between the girls. The girls have their own way, have their own too. Anon frowned as he flipped the coin over to his finger. And the palming thing accounts for me not being able to eventually use magic? She confirmed his curiosity with a curt nod. Even if you have no way to use it, you still have the natural aura, just like everybody else. Anon's eyebrow lifted slightly, lips pursed in acknowledgement. Fair enough, he said, pocketing the new invention before a restrained look of horror flashed in his eyes. Please tell me it doesn't make your butt vibrate like that map does. Twilight laugh filled the tent. No, I was able to circumvent that. Huh? I just wish there was a way to get around it whenever the map calls one of us. If you're both finished, Chrysalis interjected from across the room. I'd quite like this to get over with. Thank you. What smithereen? What smithereen of Anon's smile did exist? Huh. Were prompt erased as reality spoke aloud once more. Twilight hoped to keep him in relatively high spirit as she did her best to maintain chipper. Oh my gosh. I wouldn't be so hasty, Chrysalis. You might end up enjoying yourself after all. Anon is one heck of a chief. Chrysalis didn't, oh, Chrysalis didn't dignify her with a response and upped instead a stare to some fixed point against the wall tent wall. I mean, oh, I only really know how to make few things somewhat decently. Anon replied bashfully. But thanks, Twy. Means a lot coming from you. When the nickname she had become used to finally left his mouth, she beamed from ear to ear. With one hoof raised, she met Anon in a tight hug that lasted a few moments before they both separate. I expect the both of you to be on your best behavior, she said with authority. I expect the both of you to be on your best behavior, she said with authority in as her glance passed between the both of them. No shenanigans. All right? Okay, Mom. Anon teased. Twilight stuck her tongue out at him before looking over to Chrysalis, who met her eyes with barely restrained irris, irritation. Of course, she said flatly. Twilight wasn't quite satisfied with the terse nature of her reply, but it would have to do. I will leave you to. I'll leave you two to get started. Then I hope the both of you have a wonderful summer sun celebration. Ah, fuck. I'll leave you two to get started then. I hope the both of you have a wonderful summer sun celebration. Ah, I can't keep my maintain. As she navigated her way out of the sizable tent, passing by Anon's grill and the other cooking utensils, she did her best to stow unreasonably deep within her anxious bones. How long have you been streaming? Toodle. Hold on. Hmm. Anon sighed, feeling the dead air within the tent with his exploration. How did it ever end up like this? He thought. The whole thing being one of the food vendors for the summer sun celebration was supposed to be an enjoyable experience. Make food, make people laugh, get paid, finance replacing some of his things that were destroyed in the invasion altogether. A pleasant time, and his favorite purple nerd come along few days before the celebration stating that she had some sort of special special friendship assignment for him. She didn't tell him what it was either, which set off some bells in his head. He trusted her, though he went along with whatever she said she had in mind. She never steered him wrong before. This couldn't be so bad, right? He trusted her. Right. When he showed up outside of his vendor, when he showed up outside of his vendor tent, accompanied by the reason his house was in shambles, though, Anon's faith in the situation died. Even as he stood in uncomfortable silence of his tent watching the ratoon guards filling, peeling, and through the entrance flap, it remained gone. As they all took their position in various points across the limited workspace, she looked over at the former changeling queen still stewing in her seat. Her imposing form was at a diminutive against the circumstance of her presence. It was all kept in check by the ring of her horn. She supposed the very thing that kept her from enforcing her will on the world, from shifting another world, formed a wreaking havoc. If only the device could keep her ego in check as well. Anon begrudgingly steeled himself for the day to come. Have you cooked anything before? Anon asked, picking up a checklist from the vendor table up at the front of the tent. Chrysalis, in the near disbelief, sized up Anon up. Changelings don't require physical substances. She's deadpan. We feed off emotions. I'm familiar. Doesn't tell me either you've been curious enough to try it, though. A few moments of silence pass between them as Anon finishes reading through his list, glancing back at the rear area of the tent where the cooler were. No, Chrysalis said plainly. You're lucky I happened to bring the recipe card then. Anon fished out of his pocket and crumbled it as best as he could before walking over and handing it to her, only for her to stare at it silently for a few moments as the suppression of the ring glowed a stickly green. An exhausted sigh uh, ejected itself from her nostril as she made the realization that she would have to use her hoof to grab it, which she did in a short order, borderline snatching it out of Anon's hand to read it. I'm sorry. Get familiar with the ingredients. Anon ordered flat and direct. I'll be doing the most of the actual cooking. You're the sous chef, helping out whenever I need it. As she looked up from the cart, Anon bore witness to the fire of resentment, hiding just behind her silted, silted pupils. Forcing a smile, she designed to speak. Of course, of course, she said, sacrange, sweet words dripping with foreign positivity. I only hope that our partnership, I will learn more about friendship from Twilight, from Twilight, from one of Twilight's trusted companion. Anon eyed Chrysalis coldly from the corner of his vision. No, you don't. Her smile dropped from her features before she could follow up with the retort. Anon continued. You're not actually trying to learn anything about friendship. You're here because if you keep in line with this reformation stuff long enough, you'd go free. It's nothing more, nothing less than that. Her eyes narrowed at him. If you assume that of me, then why agree of any of this? Because I trust Twilight, he replied. Even if she's wrong. Chrysalis chuckled, amused. How parentalocally? Paradoxically, how paradoxical? You trust her, but hold the opinion that I'm beyond redemption? I trust she knows what she's doing, Anna replied, fully facing Chrysalis with a cold glare. But I've known people like you before. You don't want to change. Anon made a Anon made Anon made for the rear of the tent to start unpacking the ingredient, but stopped just before he crossed the threshold. So let's not pretend like we care about each other. I would rather get this over with. Without waiting for a reply, he stepped into the back. Chrysalis just left sitting at the plethora of unmoving guards. An odd warped frown took hold of her features, surprised by Anon's jaded accommodation. She hadn't intended to hide her true intention in the first place. Being called out on a blazonly was a decidedly new experience, especially on Equestria. Regaining her composure, she stood content that she wouldn't have to foreign anything with this creature. I couldn't agree more. Ugh, I hate this. But I will continue part 2 tomorrow, because there's a chapter to this stuff. Okay. I'll continue tomorrow. Alright, ciao!